Yeah, that too.
All right.
So
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the
hello,
56th episode of DevKami. I'm Chiliong.
I'm Tristan.
and this is Swimming the Guy with a Lot of Rant.
Uh,
So, interesting. Okay, so let's start with our event as usual. So, what happened within
yeah,
the
there's only
week?
one day with event, I think,
Yeah, we
yeah,
actually have one. No,
which is
actually, we
this
have two.
Saturday. No, one day with event.
Correct. So, we have an event by Rails Girls,
Yep.
JavaScript Workshop, and
Right.
JavaScript, the React parts.
So
So, any
double.
story, any detail that you know for both?
No, it's just that we can't go to the same place, I guess, because one is in Cyberjaya, the other is at
Yep.
Yeah, it
Taylor.
happened in the same
One,
time.
the React part,
So,
JavaScript, the React part is actually organized by Malcolm from the
Mhm.
React KL group.
okay.
Rail Girls, and also I think some of the women who code are there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wonder who run Rails Go nowadays because they have been
Most of
active.
them, according to Wendy's, most of them are college people in the college, or not that people that we know.
Students or
Yeah,
staff.
students
And that,
like yep.
Yeah, I wonder if
Students
they
mostly.
attend the Ruby KL meetup because
I'm
they
not
can get
sure.
more
They should
support.
actually.
Yeah, they'll get more support if they attend the meetups there.
yeah. In fact, I think the original founders have their own thing nowadays. I don't
Yeah.
remember. But yeah. So at the end, that's a good thing because students organizing thing. I wish I do that last time, but oh well. If you're interested, support the folks doing this or learn something in between. As usual, you can find it at devkami.com/page/meetups, and
Mm-hmm.
it's curated by people. And the links for the PTX page are there. I suggest get it. I
Go
suggest you
down.
get the information through the PTX page.
Yep.
So that being said, anything interesting for the last week?
It's Raya.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
it's
a
Raya,
slow.
Today is the second day of Raya supposedly.
correct. But I think our Google gone down, right?
Yeah, I think a few of them gone down. Even Snapchat.
Uh-huh.
I think the
So they
main thing is
actually,
Google Cloud went down.
yeah. So they released, they released the after action
Yeah,
report, right? I mean,
there's
it's called
a
incident
incident
report. What the
report.
hell call it after action?
Surprisingly, it's actually
Yes.
pretty. Yep,
So it's a configuration.
from the look of it, it sounds like what we had during the Facebook one last time from
Right.
configuration error.
Right. So, which leads to one thing that. So I think that's the only big news for the whole big week
Yeah,
that I can find out right now.
yeah,
Thing.
yeah. Nobody's
So,
online nowadays. I think.
also there is WWDC. Anything
Oh yeah,
you find interesting at WWDC?
yeah. The very expensive Mac Pro.
Yeah, yeah, it's very expensive. I don't think it's cheap, but they have some
Yeah,
very interesting idea.
yeah. The
One
interesting.
of the go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, I think you gotta mention it as well. I think the thing that's very interesting is the FGPA module.
Yes, that is very
Because,
interesting to me.
I like
Even
that.
though they use it,
I like that Apple sometimes they push this kind of not so consumer grade kind of stuff to consumer, and hopefully it will be FGPA by itself is very expensive.
correct.
So even right
And
now,
also currently they actually use it mostly for video edit,
Yeah.
photo and video editing. So it's something that is more specialized than the graphic card.
Yeah.
So
and
I think
another
that's
thing
very
about
interesting.
WWDC is the one that I think one of the big thing for me is the social network thing. They're gonna
Uh-huh.
be like identity provider, but instead of being a social media, social network. They are not a social network, just an identity provider, and that's for me nowadays. Privacy is a big issue for me, especially especially when most of the companies that are tightening their grips and being a bit biased and involved in political agendas.
So unfortunately, while I do not actually like Apple, because it's just an opinion thing, but they do a few things correct. As in, they're being a identity provider, and they do not have conflict of interest because they do not sell ads; they sell
Yep.
hardware and software service. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, opinion,
yeah,
they are the same as Microsoft. They
yes,
have a core business that is selling stuff to consumer instead
correct.
of us being the product.
Correct. So in this way, yes, they're doing a few right thing. But other thing is that they're very exclusive in the way that they have to do things their way. So which I cannot agree with. But unfortunately, in the current technology scene, to me, it's like choose your poison. But chances is, reliability wise, unfortunately, Apple have to do their thing lah. They're already well known for that lah. So there's that. Except I prefer to play my Windows game, but that's me. All right. So WWDC, I think the computer is a bit the Mac Pro is iMac. Was it iMac Pro?
No, just the Mac Pro. It's the big one. You
Uh
know, the
huh.
trash can
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah, huh?
They updated it to back to the big
Yeah.
thing.
I think it's interesting, but a bit too expensive for me.
Yeah, they have an
Interesting.
iMac Pro, but
Yeah.
that includes the display.
Correct.
This one is the Mac Pro, which is more modular,
Yeah.
like the
Huh.
old one. So
And also
it's like buying a PC basically.
yeah, and there's a stand thing
Mm.
which I don't understand actually. I think that and also there is actually the new UI for Swift.
Yeah, I
That might be
haven't looked
interesting.
at that. What is interesting is the ability to run iPad apps on
Uh,
macOS Catalina. I think that
Right.
is the difference because a lot of people are actually using iPad apps more because
Yep.
they're like simple, I guess. So you'll have a
Mhm.
desktop app and you'll have a mobile app. And one of the big things, for example, in UX is that mobile, desktop, all of these things, they're actually not the form factor. It's about the use case. So
Yes.
even if you are um, using a mobile version on a desktop, then that's because you are mobile. Yeah, like the usage pattern is that you go do something quick and then go out and then do something else, right? So
Yep.
the UX needs to be in such a way that it needs to be very easy to get to the most common things, whereas the desktop UX is more like, okay, I want to discover things, or I want like very specific workflows that are complicated. So that's probably a good direction where you'll have an iPad app like I just want to browse Facebook and not really do lots of things, right? So maybe a Facebook app on OS X is fine, but then if you really want like to type in a full novel, for example, or blog post on Facebook,
Mhm.
then you can use the browser version or the desktop version.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know.
Yeah, that's
I'm a
actually
bit,
so.
I'm a
Slack,
bit
for
interested.
example,
Hmm.
Slack might be a good thing because now instead of Electron on the browser running browser, then you'll have a proper iOS application, right?
Yeah.
So
So
less memory. Maybe they'll do it like that. I don't know.
yeah, that's again another side point. I like the idea that you have native application,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also another side. Now you have multiple native application, right?
Yeah.
So that's now we have two different things now. But that being said, I think you're right in a way that modern as people use more tablets nowadays, uh, the users people actually had an expectation on how UX of the system would look like, right? When we use desktop, we in the beginning we had an expectation of what it is, but on the other hand, desktop don't really change for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the last big change is like when search is everywhere. But before until then, it's like we still talk about folders and stuff. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it don't. I don't have a good answer for that. But people used to the not so good way of doing things, folders and files. But that said, PC where desktop where had their own way to handle the power, but I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that, right? I just think that desktop as a metaphor can use some changes. A lot of the old idea for desktop, like for example, metadata and all that, to make it handle files smartly, that exists since what's the operating system? What's the what Haiku OS based off?
I forgot.
So they have the concept
Is
where
it Plan 9? No?
no, it's not Plan 9. Plan 9 is another cool thing, but let's not go there, right? I think it's actually a very good idea. We can go in further. It's called Amiga. No, it's not Amiga.
Okay, while you're thinking about it, I think I just had a breakthrough because I was
Yeah,
looking at myself. Now I can do this wrinkling. So I think the nerves are regenerating.
cool.
See.
BOS.
Uh-huh.
So in mid-90, BOS had a concept of adding metadata into the file system. And the reason why they want to do that is so that you can have a system, a client server system that will look at the file and do the right thing. For example, if a file contains metadata of music, then it will play a music file. Instead of using magic number to actually identify this. So when drag to directory, then they will automatically do things like creating database of music, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apple tried to do that, it didn't work well. BOS had the same idea. BOS is one of those metadata and files to
Can you guys hear me
smartly
now?
file.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep, you're
My battery
back.
died. I was yelling BOS to you guys.
yeah.
Yeah, because BOS is one of the stories. BOS is one of the desktop operating system that is going to be the Mac OS.
Yep.
I mean, when they choose it between Next and BOS.
Yes.
Yeah, and next one, obviously.
So I think that is actually very cool. I had a lot of cool ideas that didn't go out.
Yeah.
Okay, so why I like to say that because I think we can go to our main topic.
Yeah, why things are hard.
Correct, because the idea is that you got client server system, you got microkernel system to build system operating system, but why it didn't get it had the idea of things being simple, but it's not so much. But that being said, I think we should. I like the idea of BOS, but I never used it before. But I think from there we should actually start talking to. We should ask Tristan what makes you trigger this topic.
Because you talk about it.
Oh, I thought about it last week.
Okay, we lost Tristan, I think.
Oh, okay. I thought about it last week. But okay, so the thing is, right?
Last week was about complexity. Yeah, it's actually one of the topic that in a way linked with last week. The supposed topic of last week.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Nowadays we build software. It's a complaint I have since forever. Why is it that we build more layers of things on top of our software?
Yeah, because we don't know what we want.
Yes, it goes back to that, right? The reason why we have so many abstraction for our software because we as a software developer do not understand. There's two sides of it. Again, I like to two sides of it.
We don't understand the full, like the future. Basically, we can't see the future.
Correct.
We only can work with what we have right now.
Correct. I have something I want to say about that part, but so on one hand, we do not know. People cannot make decision right now, and that is happens in many software development projects.
Well, yeah,
So
you can't make a decision, but you have to. So because of time, right?
correct. So if you talk to your customers, people that give a project, often they can't make decision like for things like how the business would look like, how the calculation works, how calculation works. So for example, how the business rules like who get assigned to do what if you work on a workflow based system, right? So in between that, for example, let's say you implement a point of sale system mid last year, right? There's a transition between GST to non-GST. Now people are different way. To actually charge a service charge and whatnot. And for a while, people do not know how they want to charge us. How do they want to calculate the charges and all that? Notice that?
Yeah,
That
exactly.
kind of that's the situation. As a result, we make it flexible. But to make it flexible means add one more layer and
Mm-hmm.
layer,
Mm-hmm.
right? It get complicated.
Yeah,
But
and
what you guys think?
again, because they didn't know in the beginning, and
Yeah.
they were stuck with what they have. Um,
Yes.
for example, like something more concrete, like I was installing the deploying the sensor this morning, right, in the
Yeah.
office, and the problem was I the like when the thing boots up, when the ESP32, the Wi-Fi
Mhm.
microchip microcontroller boots up, it uses so much amperage that when the sensor and the microcontroller is on at the same time, it cannot provide, the wireless induction charger cannot provide enough power, and
Right.
so it's stuck in a brownout. It never continues on, right? But if you
Right.
like nudge it a bit, like plug it in first and then switch over to the wireless power, then it's fine because it's like ongoing power. So
Mhm.
the problem is I didn't have my soldering iron in the office, for example, etc. So I had to use like sticky tape and all of these things just so that I can at least get something working and done there. And I probably bring a soldering iron tomorrow just to fix things up. But at that point, like right now, the situation of that project is that it's like a hack. It's like many of the software projects that we have, like lots of band-aid and duct tape
Mhm.
everywhere because we had to make do with what we have in the situation at that point.
Yes.
The problem is that if, for example, we never actually get to disentangle our hacks and then just build on top of that, or even worse, leave it for a bit and then someone else takes over and thinks this is how we are supposed to do things with sticky
Mhm.
tape instead of proper soldering, then that's where the issue comes in, because now hacks upon band-aid upon duct tape is piled on top of each other, and it just becomes very, very messy, and you have no idea what is happening. You touch something, everything else breaks because everything is
Mhm.
just held together by sticky tape.
So
So
what you're
that's the
describing
problem.
here is essentially one way to describe programming.
Sorry,
So
come again.
is what you're saying just now, what you're describing just now is essentially one symptom of what we call cargo cult programming.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Is
know
it
cargo
cargo?
cult?
I know the cargo cults.
Yeah, so for those that do not know, during World War II, the United States Navy actually setting up air bases in various islands in the Pacific, though and the built airstrip and all that. So what happened is on those islands, for example, in Indonesia and a few islands in the Pacific, those people are essentially on pre-Iron Age era. They're primitives, all right. So when the Americans land on it, set up base, they also distribute food to them. So during the war, the few years of the war, they are rich. They got food, they got clothes, and all that because they think that they're doing the right by helping the natives. They need to bribe them for support and all that. After the war, they left, and with that, no food and all that, right? So what happened is then is the cargo cult try to replicate what the Americans are doing, and
They
they do
had a
not
better
understand how planes.
they had
Huh?
a better life when the Americans were there. Then when
Correct.
they
As
left,
that
they wanted
that's
to
it.
get back to how they
Yes.
were.
So what they
But
do is that
they didn't understand what it was that made their lives better, right?
correct. They do not know how planes work, and they thought planes are the one with fuel, so they build things with plane shape and all that, right? So
Using grass and using trees and
correct, because they do not understand. So what you're describing just now is when people take over a project, especially very fresh people, when they take over a project, they just do as what code does, right? They do not understand why it's done that way. Why it's done that way, despite the fact that there's a lot of bad decision on that time, maybe, but it's still being done
I
because
would
there's
say
no thought.
I'm optimist about this. Like I would say that was the best decision at that time, but it's
Yes,
not a good decision if you do it now. That's why it has to be rectified and has to be fixed.
yes,
So I would say
But
that like that kind is relative to the time period.
correct, and also relate. The thing is, what you're describing is when people take over, they just learn and not
Yeah.
changing. Despite
Mhm.
that, that's cargo
Correct.
cult.
Yeah. And given that, so because that was the best decision at that time, it's not a good
Yes,
decision now.
yes,
Then if your decision to continue on with whatever it was that was done before is a bad decision, then
yep,
because you already know that it's not a good decision to continue on and it has to be fixed, then why are you deciding not to fix it and
hmm,
just continue when you you already know that this is going to be a problem? And I think like it for one two instances it's fine, but when the project is like heaps and heaps of all of these decisions on top of each other, then it becomes very difficult to debug.
so yeah, yeah, precisely right. So, but the thing is, at which part, at which part where we have to we decide that we should do it again in a proper way, or
That's
at
a
which,
that's a very interesting paradox. There's this paradox about the grains of sand, that if you
yeah,
have a grain of sand, two grains of sand, when does it become a pile of sand?
yeah,
And I think that is like the threshold that you're asking, that it's a very existential question. Like if you're
correct,
made up of cells, like when does this cell combination of cell become you, for example?
yeah. Oh, that is called emerging theory. That's get complicated really fast. But there is two extreme of that. One extreme is you have a conservative way to writing of software. In this case, we try not to change too much because everything is brittle. We don't have unit tests. We don't understand the business logic. As a result, we do not change too much. Actually, there's a case where Java they ask you to write tests right now because anything that is not anything that don't have tests is known as legacy code, right?
I would
Uh,
say anything that doesn't have test is like a prototype.
well, yeah, but yes, I know I'm guilty of that. So yes, totally right. I
Which is
don't write
fine. I
tests all
mean,
the time.
there is a place for prototypes because it allows you to like. That's why we have breadboards, right? You just put things in, see how it works, and then you
Yeah,
know it's not stable. You know you're not putting it
yeah,
uh, out there. As long as you recognize it's a prototype,
yep,
then you have the license, or you have the excuse not to write tests on it because you don't need it to be stable. You're going to like leave it out anyway as a learning
yeah.
experience.
For hardware, it's a bit easier to differentiate because there's no way you're going to send your breadboard and say there's a product, right? And hardware, you also all had the idea of built for manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Built for manufacturing, you should read a book called Hardware Hacking by Buddy Huang. He's well known for hacking the Xbox, original Xbox. So his book is when you build hardware, you have to build for manufacturing. Then you have to cost and all that. But in software, uh, we can make do with prototype, which is both cool and scary at the same time. Do you
See,
notice
I guess
that?
I guess in the hardware world, it's more like you're making a product using an FPGA. So you program the FPGA, and that's your circuit, and then you, that's
Not
basically the
true.
thing.
Not
No.
true. It's not FPGA. It's more like yes, there is called EDA, electronic design automation,
Mm-hmm.
where you actually simulate the circuit. They have such thing, but sometimes when you build that, you put it on breadboard, you make sure it works and all that. That's prototype.
Yeah.
On hardware project, you had a clear idea what is a prototype, what is not. On
Mm.
software, it's a bit it's a bit less clear, and as a result, here's something I also noticed as well. As a result, sometimes when software people discovered Arduino and build stuff, and they build very impressive stuff, and they consider that a product, and that's the end of it,
Yeah,
right?
actually, that's true. A lot of the example code, for example, that I've seen are like they indentation isn't there. For example, it's like it's copy pasted code from various sources, and
Yes.
you can see that they're all similar because they have the same comments, and that this blogger, for example, or article writer or YouTuber has been copying code, and then just like, okay, this is how it works, and it's like all so messy.
Yes.
There's no separation of libraries, etc. It's like, I just want to make this Bluetooth module work, for example, and that's how it
Yeah.
is. And um, even on final designs, for example, final uploads,
Mhm.
just get this, just download this INO file, everything is there, and then
No. Yeah.
upload it, and then now this is the circuit and whatever, and then that's it. So the
Yeah.
hardware side is great. You have a PCB, you have well surface mount devices, like it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
clean. And then the software side is like, whoa, what is this tangled mess or something,
Yes.
right?
Correct. Uh, that's the software complexity versus hardware complexity. Sometimes people just doesn't jump toward it. Software complexity is sometimes okay. So back to software complexity, right? Uh, so what you're describing just now is code also, but in this way they just copy and paste code. Actually, in the community, we actually have complained about bootcamp advocating people just copy and paste from Stack Overflow. Uh, Here's one thing I found, which goes back to the idea of complexity.
I noticed that I've been speaking to the mic while I muted.
Yeah,
Oh,
you were
really?
muted.
Interesting.
I muted myself.
So, anything want to add on top of that?
No, I have an opinion of Kakao. Is more like Kakao for me in the industry is like it's more like people following patterns or certain way of doing things blindly,
Yeah,
and the I mean the way we see. I mean the word to I mean the simile is like correlation and causation.
yeah,
So for them, like because it looked like this, so it must something. If you do this, you have this side. I mean, I like to call it side effect. This kind of effect,
yeah.
you then it must be the the code or the way that you did it that causes it.
But there's also another level for that. That is Google use Go, therefore Go is good.
Uh,
Or all startup use Ruby on Rails, therefore Ruby on Rails is awesome.
yeah,
It
but
is awesome, but not for that reason.
yeah, but
Right?
there are actually some
Right. So,
reason
so
with.
that's the correlation, I guess, the part, right?
I think
Like,
there
Yeah,
must be some reason behind it, like Rails, because it's so easy to bootstrap a
well,
prototype.
that's the causation part, I think. So I think the correlation that Swimming was talking about is that, oh, startups are doing things fast. Startups are using Rails, and for some reason, and it must be because, so the correlation there is that startups are like innovating fast.
Can I share
Startups
a
are
pet peeve
Rails,
about
and that's
startup?
the thing. Yeah.
yeah,
The I actually think that like some startup they like to associate words with like hustle and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
I actually find it actually not in a political correct way. It's actually not something that is healthy for anything because it gives people impression that you can simply do anything
yes,
and I mean by hook and by crook and the whatever the ends justifies the means kind of
yes,
validations and
yeah,
yeah I don't like this kind of culture like the way they publicize how they hustle over it or something like that.
yes. So my thing about that is some people work 3 jobs, get minimum wage and still not enough. So are they hustle or are they just what, right? So that's another story about startups. But
But the
so
only true things
let's go back to
okay,
the
okay. I'm gonna share a joke though.
Mm-hmm.
I
yeah.
actually
Go on.
copied from Kyril.
Yeah,
The beside hustle, the only common word we have with the drug trafficking industry is that we call our customer users.
yeah, yes. Uh,
So the startup world is like the drug trade,
Yeah.
just more. Well, I guess lots of startup founders are also using drugs, but
I don't know
maybe.
that. I don't know that, but
Don't do
let's
drug
say
kids.
yeah, don't do drugs. I mean, coffee is fine, and that's about as far as you go.
Only in Malaysia, you see, in the Netherlands, it's legal there.
Yeah.
So depends on the
Yeah.
country.
But yeah, it's country dependent. Did you say stick with coffee?
Mm.
So that's
Or
why.
those I forgot what is this modafinil, that's a new thing in the startup as well, right? Well, not a new
Yeah,
thing, but that's the in thing, like the ones that keep you awake, on tip top shape without having to sleep. Better
yeah.
than coffee, they say.
So there's another thing about cargo. I think we should change topic, but I think we're going to link back to complexity soon.
Hmm.
Often, when people do you notice that when you talk to people starting a company, I don't want to say startup or whatever, they're starting a company, selling solution. The first thing they say that they are a buzzword startup, and that depends on the latest trend, cargo culting,
Okay,
right?
we actually need like an app or something that stamp the cargo coupling like cargo couch.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. So every time it goes something like, I'm an AI startup, I'm a whatever, right? So and worse, sometimes we go to meetup like, yeah, we use JavaScript. No, instead of using JavaScript, like yeah, we're using React with some buzzword tag, library, whatever, right? I don't know what happened. Why is it that the first solution for a problem? Why is it that the solution to a problem, whether it's a business problem or that is buzzword, right? Uh,
Hmm.
uh, why is it that when we say something like I'm going to do something Chilean go ahead, it goes like this.
Yep, sure.
Instead of
Bring it
saying that
on.
I'm building a software trying to identify kueh, the people, someone else will actually say, I am making an AI to identify for quiz, whatever thing, right?
You're not gonna put cryptocurrency in as well.
Nah,
But
nah,
it's gonna be on the blockchain.
yeah. But that's a thing, right? Every time we go like, sometimes I say like we're building, instead of saying that we're building a software for educating people for finance, we are fintech company. Why is it that people talk in buzzword first and solution first? Why is it actually? Is it the fact that we focus so much on buzzwords that we do not think about solution which lead to complexity in projects?
I think put it in a more productive way is that put it this way like buzzword is like a way where we can find the group of people
Yeah.
like to attract the interest. The origin. What is the origin of buzzword anyway? To
Yeah.
I think
So I
it's
don't
sort
know.
of way so it's sort of serve as a anything given. I mean, if you use it in a for example, certain healthy dosage, it is good. Like buzzword actually
Yes.
helps in propelling in terms of business and like makes people that are not in tech to get interested into like certain things that are going on in the industry.
Yeah. But I don't know. It depends on the demography because what happened is during Chinese New Year, if I say I work in a fintech company, it does nobody actually understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, then it's up to you to educate them.
Yeah, precisely. So go back to the issue why things so hard. Here's one of my hypotheses. People do not start with problem first.
I think also like if things when they started early, they were not so standardized previously, just like how we did. Like Korea, South Korea and Japan, they start with ActiveX for
Yeah,
quite a while
for their
until like
There are
authentication.
still stuff with ActiveX. There's a lot of
yeah,
banks and browser like still need IE10
mm,
to work.
Yes,
because it
and
was
for that case, they literally need it
yeah,
not because the IT policy team decided that it's too risky to use browser. They literally need it because the tools requires it.
and things were not standardized. Like JavaScript was not
Well,
built
Microsoft
well.
was the de facto standard, which
Yeah.
worked for a few decades, right?
Yes.
Like like a couple,
Yeah.
like maybe 20 years.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
was fine. Like
Mm.
Yes.
IE3 was like revolutionary with this ActiveX thing. Lots of like you can what we're using JavaScript now was
Hmm.
possible before using ActiveX.
Yep.
And then of course Java went with their Java servlet thing that
Mm.
didn't really take off. But Microsoft was the de facto standard there until people just saw that
Yeah.
IE was not innovating in time,
Yeah.
which was what got kicked them out, and which
And
is
not to mention
also
security problem.
yeah,
It's
well because
actually
of
a double
ActiveX,
edge
right?
because the way how ActiveX works allows them to facilitate something like SSL before SSL were there.
Correct. Yeah.
It's why like banks that stick with it.
Yeah. So well, it was a security issue because it's a very low level, like it interfaces directly with the operating
Operating system.
system. So there's no sandboxing or whatever something. And this is
Yeah.
actually the same reason why uh Chrome,
Hmm.
the engine being in Opera, being in Internet Explorer, and of course Chrome, uh
Hmm.
that engine is because we're going back in concept to how Microsoft was back
Yes.
in the 90s, back in the 80s,
Yes.
where they were the dominant force in the browsers. Because now, uh, if let's say Google decides, okay, we're not going to be innovating on the browser anymore, it's not fully open source. There's a lot of like proprietary engine information there. Then you you have the same problem as before, right?
Correct.
And which is why Firefox like is pushing for like, hey, look, let's make sure that there is actually like um, some diversity in
Hmm.
browsers because it is an open
Mm.
platform and it should not be owned by a single engine.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
in 20 years we'll be talking about banks using that you need to use Chrome, which is actually happening right now. Please download
correct.
Chrome in order to use this website.
Yeah.
It's the same thing that was happening in the 90s.
Correct. But I'm going to give you a counter argument of that. If 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 the browser provide all the feature that you need and it's beneficial now, what's the problem?
Oh, like Windows, right?
Yes.
The problem is when it the
The-
when times happens when it move forward and it
mm,
became something like just like IE like nowadays everybody hated doing things with IE and
because they were not standards
yeah,
compliant.
yeah. But at that time it was like Chrome like you have to use it to in
Yes.
order to do certain things
Yeah.
like even certain security features like signing requires you to do
Mhm.
ActiveX and stuff.
There was no Ajax until Internet Explorer implemented Ajax. Well, it's not ActiveX, but Ajax was done in IE before it was copied over, before people thought it was a good thing. And of course,
So
they didn't use the same classes as IE was using. They used something else, so you had to test for that.
So
Yeah,
it depends
and
on
it's
the timeline of the definition of I mean the period of the legacy definition.
Mhm.
I mean probably the implementation is very sound at that. I mean was sound at that moment, but
yeah.
it's no longer relevant nowadays.
Yeah,
Yeah, so as you said in the early, right, a lot of the information at that time, that's the best decision at
Yep.
that time, right? Uh, Unfortunately,
So
it's
it's
a
not that
bad
it's bad.
decision.
Like
It's not
I'm
bad,
gonna
it's
bring
neutral.
I'm gonna bring in my political agenda.
Yeah,
um, I think similar to like even our I mean social politic or social economy system is that we need to revise it at certain. I mean, you need to set a expiry date for certain of these things. We have to go in
yeah,
and revisit them. Like we, a lot of time is it happens with similar to economy policy that and technology is that we tend to find the panacea to things,
mm,
but we know that because as I mean, a lot of time we cannot predict the future. We don't know how things work in the future, so might as well like plan for something that uh, can allow us to transition to the future nicely.
yeah. Because often the people talk about tools and building software project, they want something that lasts for 10 years.
Yeah.
And there
But
is an
that's
assumption.
not a bad thing to hope for, right? Like
Yeah.
if I paid you a lot of money as an investment, then
Yeah.
I want it to last for a good
Correct.
number of years.
But yes, and I think this leads to a bad incentive or good incentive. Unfortunately, economics doesn't catch up the way with how it's more like software people decided to go a different way because we can be dynamic. All right,
Mhm.
and but business are not ready for that. Until recent, in fact, uh, often a lot of policy lasts for a long time,
Yeah.
way too long for software purposes. For example, GST is there for almost 2 years. That is very long for software standard. Then I'm going to give you another one. Your insurance premiums is possibly there for 10 plus year worth
Yeah.
of rules, right? 10 plus years. Those things doesn't change often.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I mean, the software needs to change. That is why it's piling on top of. If I mean,
Correct. As a result, there's an expectation that software will last as long as the rules is. And often when people build software, they want it to be 100% correct all the time. It's also not true because even when people doing business processes, people are there so they can negotiate the rules and all that, right?
Mhm.
People want software to be perfect and get things right, and there's no.
I think the most important thing, like for software, is not about the implementations.
Yeah.
For me, it's the similar to an SI is the documentation.
Yes. Well, to me, software is something that can be negotiable. That's my thing that people don't talk about. And this is actually a bit important to the future. When people talk about using, I hate this. I'm not going to say. When people talk about AI, machine learning system, whatever buzzword.
Blockchain.
So they want something that is correct 100% of the time without changes. So when people want a black box that do things the correct way 100% of the time. So when you go to a court system, they decided whether you should go to jail or not. What they're hoping is what people seeing is what people see and expect is a black box that make decision. What I want is not just the decision to be transparent, but there is ways for us to change, to negotiate, to adapt to situation at that time. So software is cool because we can change all the time. But the thing is, bureaucracy for but yeah, often when we go that there's room to negotiate, right? So that's my thing about software. Like people want a complex software that do things and that's it. Then
I
it
think
ends up with something that is over the
I
top.
hate to say this, it's actually an education issue.
Yeah.
And it's not really. It's yes,
So
education is one, but
I'm gonna
almost
push
no one.
I'm gonna push this again. Like almost everything in our life is powered by a computer, yet
Yeah.
we don't value. The knowledge of about computer or software as much in our education.
Yes.
Not that
But
they have to learn how to code, but at least to understand what is what is the stuff that control the.
Yeah.
Our car engine or
yes.
our pacemaker.
So they're all like buzzwords now for people. Actually, speaking of buzzwords,
Yeah.
maybe because Apple had this, maybe this will trigger seeming as well. People will start talking about FPGA as if it's the next big
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. No, actually, it's
So now
already annoyed me.
FPGA.
The blockchain guys already annoys me when they talk about FPGA.
What?
I think
Blockchain on an FPGA? Really?
for me, I think
It's
it's a good thing
almost like
because
AI.
if they drive the production, cheaper, then I actually welcome it.
Yeah. To me, it's like no. What annoys me is that describe the problem, not the solution. Uh, And that to me is very important because
That is very important.
why software is hard to debug and all that, because often when people talk about solution, they talk about, okay, let's build it in Django, like for example. Why? Because 900 other companies use it, because Instagram use it, therefore we should use Django, instead of because we have these two people need some admin page or whatever. Describe solution, not describe vision. I won't say describe solution, but you need to describe. I'm going to put it this way: describe solution, but not buzzword. That's what I would say.
Is it a good reason, like to say my CTO knows Node.js, so that's why my accounting software is in Node.js?
Yeah, or even something. Oh, actually had a better solution. So on one of the startup that developer that I joined, so what happened is somebody tell them that we should use Django because it's awesome. Then I go to tell them that, and that's how they want. They start with Django, and it's a bad idea. I tell them that you do not need Django. You need WordPress because you don't have the skill. And here's why: you don't have the skill. You're not technical. You need to hire people. It's easier to hire WordPress people, etc., etc., etc. This is much better solution than just saying use X tools because it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Because for this group of people, they're business person. Their primary thing is they're not as technical as they think they are. They should just stick with. You need to give them the vision, even though it's not sexy at all.
But I've talked to a lot of people where they are trying to hire like software developers because they have this great new idea and they want an app about it, and when
Yes,
they hear the advice of like, let's start a WordPress blog. There's WooCommerce. It's very easy to sell things, and you just like do everything manually. But as long as you can sell it, then you can have like whether the idea catches on or not, right?
yeah,
But they do
okay,
no, it's because
yes,
the application is the thing. But I sometimes it's really about whether like doing the minimum thing so that you can validate whether what it is you're working before investing all of these resources, because
yes,
software might feel as if it's like it's magical, like people can
yes,
just do things, but
yes,
that is exactly why things are hard to debug, because whatever your assumptions are from the beginning, you'll have to scrap them away again and
yes,
rebuild things from beginning. So might as well start with something that can easily be scrapped, like WordPress. You can just like throw it away because it's like it's very standard, instead of doing
yes,
something custom and then feeling that, oh, I have this this thing, like the fallacy that I
yes.
have to continue on building on top of it, because otherwise
Plus,
I would it's already sunk cost, right? I've
yeah.
already
Correct.
paid
Plus,
for it.
like WordPress and PHP is like the not the sexiest word in the industry.
Yes,
So in a way, like it's in a way of like policy of appealing to the masses, the
yes,
cargo cup policy. You know.
yeah. So here's the thing, right? What it depends. For me, maybe Flash or Django is easy because I know the shortcut
I
and
think
get
Nicholas actually
started. But
put up.
for people that do not have technical co-founder, maybe they should not even start with anything. They should start with WordPress, for example. But when we take over the WordPress, then we realize that it's complicated because it had a lot of other things. But for them, it's easy for a user point of view because it's easy for them to start. And in Malaysia, okay, side note, in Malaysia, a lot of startups are not engineering heavy and do not need to be engineering heavy until much later. But that's the other thing.
Yeah. So something that Nicholas brought out that is very important is that every decision, I mean, is in a way is related to the resources that we have.
Yes.
So where, I mean, I'm gonna just read it out, like paraphrase a bit, like in his workplace where they're gonna describe the solution, discuss option.
Yeah.
Then it depends. Also, the one of the very it gonna depends on the support level as well.
Correct.
So support level is one of the very important thing in the decision. Like if
Correct.
nobody can manage it, then yeah, then what's the point? Is it gonna be really tough to maintain, or or you're the only person who can maintain it?
Correct.
So that's why like
So
just start with something that is simple.
correct. So unless your team is relatively technical, Again, complexity is different. Complexity
Actually,
or
actually, like prefer, especially in working environment, is try to reduce the complexity as much as possible.
correct.
Like try to make it as, I mean, it's it's very silly word, but as foolproof as possible.
Yes,
And which is why
and
you
we
have
have
a process, right? Processes are a way to shortcut the decision making process, the decision making function,
yes,
because you have less variables to consider. You only have, like, it's a categorization thing. You fall
yes,
in this category or in this category, and
correct.
it has been pre-decided, makes things simple. The downside, of course, there is that it's not as flexible, but it's a
Yep.
balancing act between
Yep.
flexibility and complexity. Where are
Yeah,
you in
but
the life cycle?
That
but
that is, yeah, balance. Find the
different type
right
of
balance.
team have different way of defining that. For a person that is more end user oriented, simplicity is something they understand and use right now. So WordPress is a very cool example. So let's say you join a startup that essentially started their business on WordPress site. You have to take over. Oh my goodness, I can. Okay, suddenly you have to take over the project, and we decided that WordPress is not suitable because they have a lot of consumers.
Yeah.
So that's the level where what is simple to the business founder is not just simple for you, for
Yeah.
example, right?
Of course, like it's very important to understand that you have to give, whenever you design a project, you should give it like a lifetime, just like
Yeah,
your architecture or kind of planning or
correct.
building. You need to give it uh, an honest timeline, that you know that in certain time you have to learn a way, or to find us another like a way to transition from it, or else
Yeah,
when you figure out, I mean, at that time that you when you really need to replace it, then you become a technical debt that cause you
yes.
a lot of
But,
hassle and a
but
lot of pain.
unfortunately, how do you know when to do that? That
I think it's just
unfortunately is
planning,
from experience.
like
You do a,
process.
or a process as well,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Like
processes. Yeah.
a simple, for example, like upgrading your software versions. Maybe you just do a course estimate. Okay, let's do a process
Yep.
every end of the quarter. We take a look at all of the critical vulnerabilities and make sure they're upgraded.
Yep.
And then based on feedback, like after like 4 quarters of doing that, like,
Mhm.
are we do we need to scale back? Are we like updating too often, or are we updating too slowly? And
Yep.
then readjust the process after
Yeah.
that. So it's
It's not that when you set up the rules or process, it's written to stone. You have to revise it
but
as well.
that is, I guess, going back to the cargo cultists, that is sometimes the problem, is that people, when they see a process, that is the reason that they give. Like this, we've always been doing it this way, and
Yeah,
we've been successful. We will just
yes,
continue doing it this way.
yes. And also, there is another way to look into that. It's like, X, Y, WordPress is so easy to use. Why can't you just build something like WordPress? For example, even though you know that maybe certain part is not easy customizable and whatever, right? There's another side of hard versus easy, for example. So that's so for cargo cow, a person that is for member of cargo cow, they would say that look at this thing. It works so well. It looks so easy. Why can't you do it this way? Well, there is people look at what is simple, not at a very different spectrum. So there's an end user and a technical, for example. So yeah,
Yeah. It's project management.
yes.
101.
And I actually do not know how to do that. Confession time.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's it. I think we are almost at the end. Let's see what people saying on YouTube.
And Nicholas has some opinion. Yes. Sounds more. Yeah.
Workflow and processes. I think we should
Start
spend
small,
some time
but
to talk.
start small but organized. Be organized. It's project management, like similar but processes, like Tristan say.
Yeah, I think we should spend some time to talk about that in the future because I got a feeling we got a lot of that. Because I don't think everybody knows the process, right? That's my thing. Don't worry about that. So anything else from online?
Nope.
Let's see. Let's start.
Uh,
Oh, choose
Chris,
greater. No.
Chris says today's streaming quality is a bit laggish.
Yes. Oh yeah. For everybody, Selamat Hari
Yeah.
Raya to everybody. I forgot to say that online.
And Chris says, yeah, it's correct. He's agree on like passwords sometimes can mean like or relate certain things to people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing is designed to be useless. I think.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess.
that's the optimistic way of looking at things, right? Like, uh, I just believe that people try to do things the best they can at the situation
Mhm.
that they have,
Yep.
and that it's very, very rare when people um, just are being very malicious. Like,
Yep.
they
Yes.
might be lazy, but again, that's a function of their environment or of their mental state, right? But they would generally do what they believe to be the best thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, do not attribute to malice what is. I forget the
Yeah.
quote. Do not
Learn
attribute to
razor
malice.
and learn
Yeah, do
razor.
not. No, not comes razor, but you get the idea.
And learn
Essentially,
The other one is stupidity. So do not attribute to malice what can be attributed to stupidity.
correct. Uh, in this case, I don't want to call them stupid, but just misguided.
yeah.
So yeah, that's my point. So that being said, we are almost close to come to an end. We are
Yeah.
so derailed because originally we want to talk about debugging, right? Yeah, we are so derailed so much. So
We
much.
need project management.
Yes, I'm so sorry, but so any final thought for this?
Yeah.
No,
No, because we derail so much, we do not know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So yeah,
I
we
And
can.
probably need to.
essentially, my main thing about today, what we have talked about, right, is that uh, sometimes it's about understanding the problem. Do not jump. Look before you jump. Do not just listen. Sometimes you they actually taught to train to think, right? Understand why people do things.
Mhm.
Goes back to some of our favorite topic for a while. We need to go deep about things, why people do things that way. You need to be careful because uh, often when you look at Google do things this way, they will follow. Yes and no. Yes, Google try to solve the problem, but you are not Google size. Sometimes Google's solution is for Google size organization, for
Mhm.
example. So you need to be very careful about. Uh, it's very easy to fall into the cargo cult because you need to understand the problem, and you
Yeah.
do not just say some big organization use it, therefore you follow. It's
That is
not
Cthulhu. Sorry.
so. It's about thinking and understanding before you judge. That's my thought for
Yeah.
today. Actually,
I can give an update on my clicker presentation clicker if you want.
show
Quickly,
us.
quickly. So it's the this one. This
Well,
is the 80 Tiny 85
looks different now.
Yeah,
clicker. Yeah, it looks different now. So it's the cute Duino from Citron. This is a
yeah,
Bluetooth module, and of
yeah.
course, like this is a prototype, and that's the thing. So again, I'll quickly disassemble it. It looks very clean, right? Because I had the whole thing planned
Mm-hmm.
out. The problem
Yeah.
is this used to be very clean, but see this black thing.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do
yeah.
a
The jumper.
reroute because uh the the hardware pins needed to be reversed. I
Ah,
couldn't change it in code because that's just how uh the the chip is designed, right? The interrupt
mhm,
0 needs to be there for software serial and USB HID to use. So there's an example of like a decision I made that okay, I'm not going to repeat it. I'm going to duct tape on top of it and
mhm,
modify it a bit so that just
mhm,
so that I can get the prototype working, which is it's already working now. I can connect to
mhm,
Bluetooth on this, and then it actually types things whatever I type on Bluetooth, right? So I can use it as a clicker later on when I have
mhm,
the transmitter later. But is this going to be the final product with the jumper? Of course not. I'm going
mhm,
to have a Mark II where it solves this part, and I'm not going. I made the decision right now, even though it already looks very clean. I am going to be redoing it because I don't want to build on top of a kludge like this, like
Yeah.
something. Although if this was like something I need to use now, then I can easily just use it, right? This is already
Mhm.
working. I just plug it into a computer, like assemble it, plug it into a computer, have the transmitter working, and then it can still be a clicker. But it's
Mhm.
not the final thing that I would want to like. Okay, I'm going to be
Yeah.
writing about it or something. So that's an example of like having like this was the best decision I can make. I can do
Mhm.
on that particular time because it's just one night. I
Yeah.
have work the next day. I don't want to
Mhm.
redo everything from the start. I
Mhm.
just want to get things working. Best decision
Mhm.
there. Is it still the best decision if I'm going to make a Mark II? No, I'm not going
Mhm.
to copy whatever I did here. I understand. I learned from the mistake, and then I'm going to do better next time. Yeah, so that's the update here. And of course, the M5 stick C is not charging, so I need
Mhm.
to contact them. What is happening here?
Yeah. I think there's
I wanted to use
something.
this as well. I wanted to use this as the so there's going to be a timer, a small timer. Like let's say, okay, the talk is supposed to be 20 minutes, so I set 20 minutes, and then you have like forward, back, and then whatever something,
Mhm.
and like it's because it's Bluetooth, you can control the clicker using like
Yep.
commands. So I have to talk to the M5 stick PC people
Mhm.
to see what happens here. Yeah, so that's just the update. Also tying into our discussion on why debugging is hard. It's because of things like this that keep
Mhm.
on propagating over and over because people just don't fix it on the next version. We just keep
Yeah.
it.
My hardware is a little bit different than software, but then, I'm not. But
Yeah,
then,
it's easier to see that this is like this should not
yeah.
be here, right? Like
Yeah.
everything else is clean, and this should
Mhm.
not be here, so it's out of place. But in software, sometimes when if you especially if you're not well experienced with the software, like you don't even know what is out of place. You might see that oh, this is just how things are.
Yeah. We need to cover cut.
Hmm.
Also, off topic. This is why Stoneworks have multiple prototype for the same claim before they sell it to the airframe.
Hmm.
Stoneworks of Lockheed Martin, right?
Yeah.
So, which is why all big engineering project from the space program to the starfighter is multiple prototype designed differently at that time, which they had to change because testing will show something is wrong.
Yep.
So yeah, I think we should talk about debugging next week.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
So
What
with
are we
that being said,
debugging?
we have a lot of things to talk about. We can talk about logging. We can talk about our favorite
Ah,
logging
okay,
tools
cool.
or debugging, debuggers, because half of those damn kids do not know what's a debuggers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I gotta. I gotta skip it.
That's
It's not proper.
we after when actually we'll talk debugging. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we sign
Bye.
off?
See you next week.
Bye.
Yeah.
See you
Happy
next week,
Selamat Hari Raya.
people.
Selamat Hari
And I'm
Raya.
so sorry